right. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Myers, the Urban Planner for the Chester County Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome you to the first session of the 2020 Urban Centers Forum. We're glad you could join us, and we hope you find this program beneficial. As a note, we'd like everyone to turn off your video and audio for the time being, so that will help the speakers be more readily identified and reduce distraction, allow us to focus on those speakers and the questions and answers. I will note that both of these sessions will be being recorded and will be posted to our website in the near future. We will begin with opening statements from our Chester County Board of Commissioners, Marion Moskowitz, Josh Maxwell, and Michelle Kickline, followed by some statements by the Chester County Planning Commission Executive Director, Brian O'Leary, and then the Director of the Department of Community Development, Pat Bakovitz. So I will turn it over to the commissioners. So thank you for joining us, and we'll
thank you.
Let them
it's
opening statements.
It's great to come together again, even if it's still virtual, to talk about some information and best practices, to share our views regarding our amazing urban centers. Today we'll be focusing on a topic that before March we couldn't have imagined that we'd even be discussing, and that is our Main Street recovery. Since COVID-19 hit our area, our focus has been on helping our Main Street businesses. You know, early in the pandemic, we held our telephone town halls, which provided information such as payroll protection, and our webinars with such valuable information as to how to open back up safely. And then our Main Street Preservation Grant Program, where we put $5 million in for small businesses with gross revenues under $500,000. Our COVID-19 Business Task Force had three main goals. The first was to help mitigation strategies to prepare our businesses to reopen. The second was to help with information and updates on reopening, focusing on providing guidance for specific industry sectors, our toolkits. And the third is to provide a guide in the development of an economic recovery, which is where we are now. We know that our task force, led by the Chester County Planning Commission and the Department of Community Development, by Brian O'Leary and Pat Bakovitz, which is in good hands. And I want to take a moment to thank them for the incredible job they're doing getting us to this point. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Maxwell for his comments, but thank you very much for being a part of this.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm a lifelong resident of one of Chester County's urban centers. Spent 5 years on the Planning Commission here, as well as president of the Main Street Association in one of our urban centers. And it's pleased to see everyone come together in this way. Learning together and from each other benefits all of Chester County. The longer COVID-19 remains, the greater the need to provide resources to assist our community and our economy. Restore Chester County, which was born out of the COVID-19 Business Task Force, includes a website, restorechestercounty.com, webinars, a dedicated phone line for business assistance, PPE with coordination from all chambers of commerce in Chester County, and the simple ask, wear a mask to support Main Street businesses and protect all of us as consumers. The goal of our Urban Centers Forum and the importance of urban centers within Chester County remain a top priority. For now, we're going to focus on recovery, and together, working together, we will recover.
Good to see everybody again today. Our urban centers, as Marion said, sharing ideas and information. You're such a loved part of the Chester County community, but you have been one that has been hit very hard by COVID-19. And we commend all of you for working hard, for partnering together in your own communities to prepare and adapt, to keep businesses going through the summer and into the fall. And Restore Chester County Economic Recovery Plan, Phase 1 is happening now. Short-term strategies for the 21 industry sectors identified on the Restore Chester County website. Industry leaders from each of those 21 sectors identify short-term actionable steps needed to stabilize businesses and industry. And Phase 2, larger, broader, long-term recovery plan, addressing overall recovery from economic impacts of COVID-19 and how we can further strengthen our community and economic viability in the future. Today's forum, excellent presenters. I know everyone will benefit from this time together.
So I'm Brian O'Leary, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We're really looking forward to the presentations. And what you're seeing is, what you'll see today are ways that we're discussing to implement Landscapes 3, but also to react, as you heard from the commissioners, to the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impacts that has had. Landscapes 3, I'm holding the document here. Urban centers and prosperity, economic development are key parts of the plan. One of the 6 goal areas is about prosper and how do we make the county economy as strong as possible. And then there's a specific objective about strengthening our main streets. At the Planning Commission, we have always taken this role very seriously, and Kevin Myers is our urban center planner who is out and about helping our urban centers in their planning and their economic development. We also recently, in a restructuring, created a position that is focused on housing and economic planning. And that's Libby Horwitz, who you'll be hearing about from this afternoon, about a new report that we created about the Chester County economy to provide background information as we move ahead on the Restore Chester County efforts that Commissioner Kickline was describing, with phase 1 occurring now. And you'll hear from Todd Pohl about some of the information he's collected related to that first phase of action steps, and he's leading that effort as a consultant for us. And then phase 2 will be, the update of a longer range economic plan for the county. So there's lots of different ways that we are trying and working hard to implement good planning, support economic development in our urban centers. One of the key partners in the county with the Planning Commission is the Department of Community Development, and Pat Bachowitz is going to fill you in a little bit about what they're doing.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to participate again in what has become now our annual Urban Centers Forum. Last month, and again, I'm Pat Bachowitz, Director of the Department of Community Development. My primary role and the role of the Department of Community Development as it relates to urban center revitalization is the administration of the Community Revitalization Program and the Community Development Block Grant Program. Just last month, the county commissioners awarded 5 new grants to the boroughs of Glen, Honeybrook, Oxford, and Spring City, and a 5th grant to the city of Coatesville for their train station parking garage. These awards total just over $2.3 million and pushed the total amount of county funding from the Community Revitalization Program and the Community Development Block Grant Program since 2002 over the $70 million mark. So we're quite proud to be a part of the urban revitalization in our 15 boroughs and the city, and look forward to partnering with you as we move forward. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank Brian and his team, Kevin, and the rest of the Planning Commission staff and my staff for helping put this together. I think you'll find this afternoon's program very meaningful to you. I'd also be remiss if I didn't encourage all the urban centers to begin planning for next year's urban community revitalization program applications just around the corner. Probably shortly after the new year, we'll be releasing applications. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me and or team members within the Department of Community Development or Kevin. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin and say thank you again for participating this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Pat, very much for that, and commissioners, thank you for your comments, and Brian as well. With this, we'll get started with our program. And we already mentioned there an outline of who will be speaking today, but we're going to start out with the Kennett Small Business Response Fund. We have Bo Wright from Historic Kennett Square, Luke Zubrod from Square Roots Collective, and Lorenzo Moreno from True Access Capital. And we're excited to hear about this very local initiative to help small businesses in Kennett Square Borough. Gentlemen, go ahead.
So I can go ahead and get started. This is Bo Wright, and I am sharing my screen now. So as Kevin mentioned, I'll open up. My name is Bo Wright. I'm the Executive Director for Historic Kennett Square, and will be followed by Luke Zubrod from Square Roots Collective and Lorenzo Moreno from True Access Capital. So starting at the bottom and working our way up with the professionals. But want to just tell you quickly about the Small Business Response Fund, which is one of the programs that Historic Kennett Square is executed on during this COVID crisis. First, a little bit about Historic Kennett Square. We are a 501c nonprofit. We're often kind of confused with the borough, but we're a separate nonprofit. Our work broadly falls into kind of two broad buckets. The first being kind of Main Street type work. We're a traditional Main Street organization. We run the Kennett Square Farmers Market, events like the Brewfest and Winterfest, Holiday Village Market, Third Thursdays, where our Main Street here is closed down for outdoor dining. Lots of events like that. And we also assist other organizations with events and kind of champion the Main Street and have a history of doing that. The other broad bucket that our work falls into is economic development. So we kind of house the Office of Economic Development for the borough of Kennett Square and Kennett Township as well. So that looks a lot like small business support. We were able to help many of the businesses within Kennett Square with their PPP applications and other programs during the COVID crisis. And we also work across those municipalities to achieve economic and community development plans, sort of long-range plans. This is just a little about who we are trying to become as an organization. We're trying to become an organization that's moving from kind of just serving our Main Street to really being a community-wide community development organization. Like many communities in Chester County, Kennett Square is experiencing kind of the challenges of growth. Those challenges are good. I think we'd rather be in this position versus kind of a more stagnant economy, but the challenges are real. And in particular, the challenge we face in Kennett Square is kind of the unequal distribution of the benefits of that growth. So one of the ways that Historic Kennett Square has begun to talk about this is as follows. At HKS, we know that Kennett Square has the potential to be an inclusive, beautiful, and evolving community. We provide expertise in community development and thought leadership, and we host events to build community so that Kennett Square will become a beautiful community where everyone can belong and prosper. This is kind of core to who we are. We believe that when communities are connected and inclusive and have strategic leadership, they grow and change in positive ways that benefit everyone. And the goal of HKS is really to kind of be that strategic leader driving equitable growth within Kennett Square. So that brings us to this program that we're talking about, the Historic Kennett Square Small Business Response Fund. So a little about the background that I'm going to share. This all started from a conversation early on in the COVID crisis between myself and Mike Bontrager with Square Roots Collective, just kind of talking about the struggles of our, especially Main Street or consumer-facing small businesses. As has been said previously, this crisis was particularly challenging for those consumer-facing small businesses. It hit them the hardest. And this was when we were talking kind of the time that the CARES Act was coming out, none of the funds had been distributed. You could kind of tell early on that while it was an incredible program and very helpful for many small businesses, it wasn't going to help every single one of them, and the kind of structure of it didn't fit many of our small businesses. So we started trying to imagine ways that we could be helpful, given HKS's role in the community and Square Roots Collective's role in the community and kind of passion for the community. So Mike on that call, Mike Bontrager, very generously offered to match anything that Historic Kennett Square was able to raise, basically donations for the small businesses. He would match anything up to $250,000. And he was he very much wanted this to be a community-driven program. He wanted it to kind of be chips in the social capital bank of Kennett Square. He really wanted to get the community involved, have them a part of it, not just be someone writing a large check, but have the community really feeling like they're participating in this, give them an outlet to support their businesses, and really build up the community so that the businesses as well didn't feel like they were simply getting handouts, but that they were part of a strong community. So the kind of structure we came up with, Historic Kennett Square would go out to the community, and we would raise funds for grants to small businesses within the borough of Kennett Square and Kennett Township. Square Roots Collective would match dollar for dollar all the funds that we raised. We were able to raise money, and I'll share that kind of at the end, from 279 unique contributors. That includes some institutions and foundations, but it's mostly individuals, and mostly individuals within our borough and township, within our community, who call Kennett Square home. And we're very excited about contributing to this program and really, supporting our community. We created a grant review committee, which Lorenzo will talk more about, diverse individuals from across our community who really understood kind of the needs of our small businesses and were representative of the whole community. We made sure that the applications were both in English and Spanish, and made sure that we had individuals both on our staff at Historic Kennett Square and on the committee that could speak Spanish to reach out to our Latinx community within Kennett Square to make sure that, again, the funds were distributed equitably and really was an inclusive program. So the last slide I'll share, and then the grant review committee, as Lorenzo will talk about, made distributions to small businesses, and Lorenzo will tell you more about that. In total, to date, we have distributed $267 or close to $268,000 to small businesses, with about $8,000 remaining in the fund to distribute that we're looking to distribute in the near future. So with that, that's kind of Historic Kennett Square's role in it. I will turn it over to Luke Zubrod, who can tell you more about Square Roots Collective and their interest in this program.
Thanks, Bo. My name is Luke Zubrod, and I lead operations here at Square Roots. I've been here for about 1.5 years, but worked for a long time with Mike Bontrager at Chatham Financial, which he founded and was the CEO of until about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. I'm going to introduce you to Square Roots Collective, ultimately with a view toward giving you a sense of the why behind the Small Business Response Fund. I'll talk briefly about the 3 areas of focus for Square Roots. I'll give some perspective on some of the initiatives that'll help kind of put some skin on those areas of focus. And then, perhaps you've been exposed to some of these initiatives without necessarily knowing who was behind them or the vision that informs them. So hopefully you'll get a sense of that. Square Roots' mission is to advance our community toward an ecosystem in which everyone can thrive. And from that perspective, Historic Kennett Square has been a great partner because they have a very similar view of thriving and a community ecosystem. We really focus on 3 areas. One is social impact, and what we talk about there is that we really want to seek to counter the uneven nature of opportunity. Another area is community development. And this is where we think of strengthening our unique sense of community and place. And lastly, environmental stewardship, which is preserving our natural environment to be enjoyed by all. So what does this look like practically? I'll give you an example of an initiative that we have in each of these areas. And again, hopefully this helps to inform the backdrop of why the SBRF made sense in light of our mission and kind of what we're all about. So one of the areas for social impact is an organization called SCCON, the Southern Chester County Opportunity Network. And it's first worth noting that most of everything that we do is in collaboration with community partners. And that's especially true of SCCON, where the Kennett Area Community Services, CACS, and United Way of Southern Chester County, among others, have been critical partners in coming together to form this initiative. The initiative was birthed out of this way of thinking, this framework about poverty called Bridges Out of Poverty, which offers a holistic view of poverty and the different levels of intervention needed in order to help people transition out. And so it started with training. Various SCCON or Bridges trainers have brought 500 plus people into this way of thinking and started to gather those who were interested and wanted to answer the question, what else could we do? How can we get involved? And so they have regular community meetings, and out of those formed these discovery groups, which were targeted at key areas necessary to address in order to move the needle on poverty. So one of those, just again to give an example that birthed very recently, was an education equity discovery group. And the emphasis of time spent there has been in a number of areas, but very recently, especially with the schools shutting down or eventually going hybrid, one of the big needs was for students who were particularly vulnerable to the circumstances of COVID, elementary school kids where both parents were working, possibly where they had Wi-Fi access issues at home, and where people were living on the margins financially. How do folks in that situation deal with virtual education? And it's incredibly difficult. And so this group has been working with the school district, with nonprofits, with churches, to try to create some learning pods where these folks could get some help getting online, some tutoring, some space with Wi-Fi where they could do their virtual education. So that's happening in real time right now, but it just gives you a sense of kind of community support coming together to help address community challenges. Bo, if you want to step forward here. In the area of community development, probably the most visible example of how we've invested here is the Creamery in Kennett Square, which is a community gathering space that also serves food and beverage, located on Birch Street in Kennett Square. This was a dilapidated building that was in disrepair. It was founded in 1902 as a former Eastern condensed milk company. That's why it's called the Creamery. And then it was reimagined as a community gathering space in 2016. And when Mike, Square Roots' founder, bought the building in 2011, he really was not sure what it would become, but he felt like it needed to be in the hands of someone who loved the town. I think what he didn't want to see is that it would just be, this beautiful historic building would just be taken down and a shopping center put up. And so wanted to buy it, even though he didn't yet know what it was going to be. So as part of Kennett's, the Kennett region's economic development plan, Birch Street has been envisioned as an arts, entertainment, and culture district. And so, the Creamery is part of this larger project on Birch Street, which we're involved in other ways of helping to bring that arts, entertainment, and culture district into being down here. And our own offices are on Birch Street next to the Creamery as well. With respect to environmental stewardship, the Kennett Greenway is really the emphasis of our efforts here. For those who don't know, the Kennett Greenway is an envisioned 14-mile trail loop that will eventually connect 1,500 acres of open space and will travel through 5 municipalities, but largely in and around and through Kennett Square. So we're, again, this is a collaboration. We're working closely with Kennett Township, Kennett Borough, with the Land Conservancy of Southern Chester County, and we operate in this space through the Kennett Trails Alliance. And then I'll just give one more example here, and this example sort of shows how, in an ideal world, we can kind of stitch multiple of these areas together. So Voices Underground is one of our latest initiatives. And this is an initiative that's looking to elevate the stories of the Underground Railroad in our region. eventually through building a nationally significant memorial in this area to the Underground Railroad. And this is in partnership with Lincoln University. And it's really with a broader view of playing a role in healing the American racial imagination. Obviously, it's a very fraught moment in this area. And so, we think that this initiative can contribute. So these projects give you a sense of our heart, which is really, again, to advance our community toward an ecosystem in which everyone can thrive. And with that as a backdrop, as the pandemic came about, the question for us was really, what role can we play to help? And we sought to answer that across a wide array of areas within which we're involved. With SCCON, started a gathering of nonprofit and community leaders for weekly calls to really exchange information and coordinate needs and resources, and about 60 people, as many as 60 people still join these calls, and it's become a real strength, source of strength in creating a coordinated response to the pandemic in areas like food security. The creamery, at the creamery, we started serving free pizzas and pizza kits to the vulnerable in our community and also to healthcare workers. On Birch Street here, we have a motel where we converted a number of rooms into housing through an organization called Family Promise, which equips people to transition out of poverty and homelessness. But we're also sensitive to and concerned about the particular challenges faced by small businesses, which we really view to be an important part of the community ecosystem, part of the roots of what makes a community thrive. And, as I was, starting to wade into questions about the pandemic, this article by Derek Thompson in The Atlantic, "The Pandemic Will Change American Retail Forever," really struck me. One of the quotes from this article, if you page forward, Bo, Derek says, "Meanwhile, most small retailers like hair salons, cafes, flower shops, and gyms have less than 1 month's cash on hand. One survey of several thousand small businesses, including hotels, theaters, and bars, found that just 30% of them expect to survive a lockdown that lasts 4 months." So this is just a very striking thing. And you think about, trying to nurture and play a role in nurturing a healthy ecosystem, and just how devastating it could be if many of the, key contributors to that ecosystem went away because of something totally outside of their control. And so our answer to this question of how we can help, started to take form in discussions between Mike at Square Roots and Bo. And the result of that conversation was really the historic Kennett Square Small Business Response Fund. And with that, I'll hand it off to Lorenzo to share more about the results of that effort.
Thank you, Luke. So, hi everyone, my name is Lorenzo Marino. I'm the Senior Loan Officer at True Access Capital. And for anyone that's not familiar with who we are, we were formerly known as First State Community Loan Fund. We were established in 1993, and we are a nonprofit community development financial institution, which provides financing options and technical assistance to businesses and entrepreneurs that do not always qualify for traditional lending. We focus on educating and empowering business owners and entrepreneurs, and stimulating business growth in the state of Delaware, as well as southeastern Pennsylvania, which takes us kind of to why seek True Access Capital. And as previously stated, many applicants that we serve are those that do not always qualify through traditional lending for reasons like low credit score, collateral shortfalls, or maybe the business is just considered a risky industry, or the applicant does not have the down payment required by other lenders. So, these are folks that have been maybe declined from other lending institutions, or that have the dream to start their own business, and maybe just aside from the financing, also need some training or guidance as to what is needed to be successful. So at True Access Capital, through the Women's Business Center in Wilmington, Delaware, we're able to step in and help these individuals by guiding them through just the different steps and how to complete a business plan, how to, prepare financial projections. And, it's really been, it's an ongoing effort, and especially during these difficult times where, there's a lot of questions about resources, and, and that's what we are. We're definitely a resource for a lot of individuals and a lot of businesses. So, once individuals are ready for financing, some of the loan programs that we have available are, the microloan programs for up to $50,000, which common businesses that apply are those that are startup businesses looking for some extra working capital. Our business growth loan up to $250,000 are for existing businesses maybe looking to expand into a second location. Our community development loans up to $500,000 are for a little bit larger transactions, maybe other nonprofit organizations, mixed-use property acquisitions, or schools and daycares, that sort of thing. Our 504 loan program, which is specific to Delaware for us at this time, it's again for larger transactions, and through which we partner with local banks to assist the applicants in larger fixed asset acquisition type of transactions. So how do we do this, and how do we do our outreach? Well, we do so by working closely with the community, working with community leaders, working with just, different organizations in our community, such as Historic Kennett Square, such as the Borough of Kennett Square, and working with them has truly been an honor. And they're both great examples of organizations that truly care for their community and supporting their local businesses, and again, I've been really honored in assisting some of these efforts during these difficult times, and as one of those examples through the Small Business Response Fund, the SBRF, which is for businesses that are located both in the Borough of Kennett Square and in the Kennett Township, which they were able to apply for grants of up to $10,000. This grant provided much needed help during, these difficult times. And for businesses that qualify, it gave them an extra push, especially in cases where maybe they didn't qualify for federal assistance, or they simply needed some additional capital. Maybe they didn't get enough from the first round. And thanks to these efforts, thanks to the effort of Historic Kennett Square and Square Roots Collective for putting this program together, and also thanks to the SBRF committee, which volunteered a lot of their time doing weekly meetings, filtering through the applications, contacting different businesses to encourage them to apply, answering questions, reaching out to minority-owned businesses to help with any questions or translating any of the applications. It was a lot of footwork, a lot of outreach, and I'm proud of each and every one of the committee members for all the great work that they did. And as a result of this, we were able to disperse over $267,000 to 61 businesses, of which 74% were minority or woman-owned businesses, which is speaks volumes. And in addition to the SBRF, another program that was also offered for businesses in the community was the Kennett Square Community Relief Fund, which was a collaborative effort between the Borough of Kennett Square and True Access Capital. Now, this is a loan program which offers up to also $10,000 at 0% and no payments due for the first year. To date, a total of $60,000 have been approved, and the program continues to be available to businesses located in the Borough of Kennett Square. So similar to the SBRF, the Community Relief Fund provides capital to businesses impacted by COVID-19. Together, these programs have given, again, much needed help during these difficult times. And, I can't say enough how much I thank everyone for all of their efforts, and just seeing the support that, these programs have had in the community, both from organizations, residents, and even other small businesses in town. It's really been amazing to see a community come together in the way they have. So lastly here, I'll just close on the next slide. A list of other services that we provide through the WBC here at True Access Capital. Again, we are a resource center, providing guidance, counseling, training for businesses that are existing that just are looking for ways to improve their business, or entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business, or of course during this year of 2020, answering questions and concerns that people or businesses may have as to how to move forward. So, at any point, if anyone wishes to contact True Access Capital, there's my contact information, and I'd be happy to help out, anyone in need. So thank you.
That's it from us on the Small Business Response Fund. Just to clarify, this may come up as a question, the Small Business Response Fund and the other loan program that Lorenzo were talking about are separate programs. I know that was a confusion locally. So we just want to make sure that that is clear. But the Small Business Response Fund was administered by Historic Kennett Square with the Grant Review Committee, which Luke and Lorenzo were both a part of. And then the loan program is still ongoing through True Access Capital. But we push small businesses to both because they're both great offerings for our local small businesses. So thank you for your time.
That's great. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing that. We hope everybody learned from something from that, and as well might be able to contact you if they're interested in hearing more about some of the things that you talked about. I just wanted to mention that with regard to questions and answers, please feel free to type questions into the chat box. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. And as well, you can raise your hand for questions. And I think at this point, what we're going to do is we'll hold questions to the dedicated time for that at the end of the program, where we'll have a kind of an open question and answer session with all of our speakers. So again, but feel free to write questions into the chat kind of live as we go along here, and we'll catch up with that again at the end of the program. So with that, we'll go on to our next presentation, which will be Libby Horowitz from the Chester County Planning Commission, talking about the Chester County Economy Report. Libby?
Yep, thanks, Kevin. Thanks all. Let's get this started. So I'm going to be presenting on the Chester County Economy Report today. And this is a report that actually started pre-COVID, and it was really meant to form a background to where the county is at economically, gather all the necessary data. COVID did hit in the middle, so it has transitioned a little bit to become really an understanding of where we were at pre-COVID. And obviously a lot of this data is going to be very different now, but it's just trying to understand what some of the strengths and weaknesses are. The data is really from 2015 through 2019, mostly. That's when the data is available. We will be updating this report. So the report was completed by the Chester County Planning Commission, but with assistance from the Chester County Economic Development Council, and it was done for the Restore Chester County initiative. So the whole document is a 92-page report. I assume that people don't want me to read that line by line today. So I just wanted to provide an overview of what is in that report so that if people are interested, they can go and look a little bit more into that. So it's going to start off with some resident characteristics. That's going to be your population, who's living in Chester County, what their income is, what their occupation is, and where are they commuting as well. We're then going to have employment characteristics, which is going to go both over overall employment as well as employment changes, employment by industry, as well as how the employment is in relation to the region, as well as some other similar counties that are outside of our local region. We then have business characteristics, which is going to talk about local establishments, where they're located, what industry they're in. Then gross domestic product, and that's going to be real gross domestic product, inflation adjusted, industry, as well as overall. And again, an analysis of how gross domestic product is doing in the region. And then there's key industrial groups, which is a little bit different. So that groups different industries that were identified by CCEDC, such as food production and agriculture, just different key industries, and grouping different data together to understand how those industries are doing. And lastly, it's going to have real estate characteristics, and that's going to be how the housing market is doing, new construction, as well as vacancy and prices for commercial. So today I'm just going to be going over the economic strengths and weaknesses that were identified through this report. Overall, Chester County does have a strong economy, and that will help with the recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. The county's gross domestic product has been increasing, and in 2018, there was a total of 42 billion, and that's about a 56% real growth rate since 2001. Again, that's going to be inflation adjusted to 2019 dollars. And Chester County is going to be that dark blue line there. Population has also been growing. 525,000 people is the current population, and we are projected to be the fastest growing county in southeastern PA. We're expected to add around 137,000 more residents by 2045. Again, this data is pre-COVID, so that could adjust. We don't really know how COVID is going to adjust that at this moment. Employment has been growing alongside population. It's actually the largest percent increase in employment in the region, as you can see with that leftmost dark blue. There were 277,000 employed in 2018, and that's nearly 50,000 more than were employed in 2000. So with the population and the economy growing, there's actually a balance of workers who live and work in Chester County, commute out of Chester County, and commute into Chester County. So unlike Lancaster, which really has mostly people living and working in the county, we're not just having people live and work, we are drawing people from outside of the county. But unlike Montgomery County and Philadelphia, that are having much more draws, but less people living in there and working in there, Chester County really does have a balance there. So the people who do live in Chester County, there is a well-paid and educated workforce, and that's with a high workforce participation and low unemployment rates. There's the highest percentage of associate's degree or higher and bachelor's degree or higher in the region. 54% with a bachelor's degree or higher, 60% with an associate's degree or higher, and 94% with a high school graduate or higher. Highest labor force participation in the region. You will see a little bit of a trend here. So historically, the county residents have had a high labor force participation rate of 69%. Also, historically one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state. 3% unemployment in 2019, and that's where we were around. However, that did increase monthly, looking at 11.6% in April 2020 and 7.5% in August 2020. So it did jump largely due to COVID. Highest median household income in the region with a 99,000 median household income in 2019. And with this growing economy, the county's economy is very diverse, and we're not overly dependent on any one industry. And additionally, the industries, many that we have that are strong, are generally continuing to grow and are also high-wage industries. So some of these strong industries that were identified through the report, and this is looking not just at where the high employment numbers were in Chester County, but really where did Chester County have a specific edge? Where were we specifically strong in, more so than other regional areas as well as national. So we're looking at management of companies and enterprises, and that's going to mean there's a lot of headquarters in Chester County. Finance and insurance, and then looking more specifically financial investment. Agriculture, more specifically greenhouse and nursery production, which is going to be mushroom production, although there are some other agriculture as well. Professional and technical services, life sciences, software publishing, and scientific research and development. And those last four are some of those more growing now, and a lot of those are really high wage industries. So just looking at the share, so this is looking at the share of PA employment that Chester County has, and this is really looking more at just the numbers of employment specifically, and that's going to be agriculture, obviously, as you can see, is going to have around 20%. Management of companies and enterprises has about 8% of PA. Of the total employment in finance and insurance is going to be 8%, and then information at 7.4%, and management of companies at 6.7%. So we did do a location quotient analysis, and what this does is it allows one to compare how the region is doing to the nation. And a location quotient of over 1 basically means that the county is strong in that industry and that they're exporting goods and services. So Chester County had 3 extremely high, 2 is very high, location quotients in 3 different industries, major industries: agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, management of companies and enterprises, and finance and insurance. The wage was also very high. 71,000 is very high compared to both the region and the United States. So it's the average wage for total for all industries. And then, as we said, a lot of the industries that are strong are showing high numbers, as we saw on the previous slide, also have very high paying wages. Management of companies and enterprises, no surprise, as they are headquarters, 178,000. Utilities, which not quite as high in employment in Chester County, but 141, and finance insurance with 126,000. Lastly, I think, as we all know, the county is part of the Philadelphia regional economy and has easy connections to major East Coast destinations. So while there were many strengths of the economy, there were some economic weaknesses that we identified as well through the report. The real estate sector has higher vacancies and higher costs than nearby counties, and that's going to be in the commercial real estate sector. Additionally, that goes along with this vacancy, office parks along major corridors have traditionally fueled growth over the years, and the pandemic may lead to dramatically different office use and development patterns. So we're going to see Chester County in that dark blue line, and you're going to see Philadelphia MSA in the light gray. So those are sort of looking at how the county will do compared to the overall region. And the office vacancy rate has been increasing in the past few years, where it was trending downward. It has been trending upward now. And it's about 10%, which is relatively high for the region. Retail vacancy also has started trending up and has a 5.2%, and that's relatively high within the region. And remember, this is pre-COVID, so this is likely to be even worse after COVID, as we heard those earlier numbers about how many businesses are not going to reopen. Industrial vacancy is probably the number that has really been changing. It's been increasing where the region has been decreasing. You can see for Lancaster, Montgomery, and Philadelphia MSA all decreasing, and Chester County in 2020 was 6.2%. Chester County also had higher rents per square foot annually for the region. Retail was $19 compared to the MSA of $17. Industrial $8 compared to the MSA of $5, and for office $27 compared to $26. Also, I think, as is somewhat known, housing costs are high for the Philadelphia region, and while this is good for value, it does put a stress as far as workers being able to find housing in all different industries. So the median housing prices have continued to rise. You can see that dark blue line is going to be non-inflation adjusted, where that dotted line is going to be inflation adjusted. And the median household income was $355,000 in 2019. And that's median, not mean. Also, certain business sectors that have been strong in the past have actually seen declines in employment recently. So specific industries that we saw decline in from 2015, 2018, these actually were due to local factors. So we don't know exactly what those factors are. They are not necessarily weaknesses, but they are local factors. That was computer system design, electronic shopping, and greenhouse and nursery production. So all of those saw declines, and those aren't due to national trends that are happening. They're due to something that's happening locally. And that could be because of technology or something like that, just seeing declines. Also, the county actually has lower employment in a few industries than expected given national norms. And some of those are those main ones are going to be the retail trade, arts, entertainment, and recreation, and accommodation and food services. All of those are actually have a lower amount than would be expected of employees as per national trends. So again, that location quotient under 1 is going to indicate that we are below national norms. We're actually going to be importing goods and services. So again, arts and entertainment with 0.98. Some of those, just because public administration, that's just going to be because there's other places that are stronger. However, accommodation and food services with 0.71, that is lower than the nation as a whole. So it's going to include restaurants. So just finishing it up with what does this mean for urban centers? So a lot of the most vulnerable industries, as we identified, which are those foods and those arts and entertainment, which those were vulnerable due to due to COVID. Those are largely in urban centers. Additionally, population and employment is likely to continue to grow, however. And we will need to maintain and build more A+ homes. That's you can look at that. That's an initiative to house all different workers. And commercial vacancy will continue to be a challenge as it was previous to COVID. It will probably be exacerbated. That's all I have. I welcome any questions later. Thank you.
That's great, Libby. Thank you very much. And as well, that's a good segue into our next presentation, which is Todd Poole from Forward Planning, who is going to give us some information about the Restore Chester County effort.
Okay, Kevin, thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. Let me get my screen shared here. Okay, let me, can you see my screen? I hope so.
We're seeing your inbox at the moment.
We are.
Okay. Let me get that corrected. I apologize. All right. How about now?
Very good, yes.
All right, let me get this corrected. Spot. Okay. What I want to do is give you a high-level overview of where we are in our study process. We were retained by the county to, as Brian earlier said, look at the phase 1 segment of Restore Chester County, which is principally doing primary and third-party research with businesses throughout the county, across industries, and trying to understand how things were leading up to the pandemic, right before the shutdowns, and how these businesses and industries are pivoting in the face of economic tumult, and what are some of the lessons learned such that they can be shared with businesses throughout Chester County. So that's what we've been doing to date. We recently completed our primary and third-party research segment, and I'll be sharing some of the findings from that. And most recently, we had an online survey that was open to all businesses throughout Chester County, and that survey closed on Sunday evening. It was online and open for approximately 3 weeks. And we're presently in process of cross-tabulating those findings, and ultimately we're going to be producing a report probably within the next 5 to 7 business days. So that's where we are on that. All right, so there's 3 general action areas for consideration that have thus far come out of our primary third-party research. And the method by which we conducted this research through has been through telephone interviews, as well as reviewing online articles, news stories, and kind of piecing this together and telling a story. But the 3 general action areas for consideration: internet access. I think you heard about this earlier, that universal access to high quality speed internet is critical for business employees, but I would also say for households, and particularly for those households who have children in primary and secondary education. Public space, and when we say public space, we're not simply talking about green space necessarily, but of course, that would most certainly be included, but also, streets and public parking lots that are, have been turned into makeshift, restaurant patio areas or areas where kids are recreating. This is very important during this time, and it will obviously continue to be important over the next however many months it takes before we can go back to some type of normalcy. So having protocols in place such that everybody has relatively equal access to this space, or at least it's being used appropriately for the given need of a business or the community. And then facilitating cross-industry collaboration I will have an example or two on this, but this is vitally important as well, and certainly was echoed by a number of our interviewees, is this is a time for various industries such as, hospitality, retail, professional services to come together and figure out what their core competencies are such that they could perhaps leverage a better condition for their given businesses. And again, I'll have a couple of examples on that. Working with the county, we were provided with a variety of organizations, industries in which to kind of do a deeper dive on. And for the purposes of our primary third-party research methodology and our surveys, we have these 12 organizational categories here on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them, but clearly they represent the lion's share of all businesses that would exist in the county. And really what we were looking for in performing this analysis is first and foremost, what is the industry-wide guidance? For that, we cross-reference what is currently on the county's website with that found at the state level and at national level via given organizational websites and what their guidance are, just to make sure that they are consonant and that nothing of critical importance may be missing. We also identified general adaptations that various industries and the businesses within those industries are employing, and some of them are quite interesting, quite innovative. We'll touch upon a few of those. And then promising practices, kind of, this is where we're seeing businesses, pivoting, in the face of this. Some of these you're going to be more familiar with than not. But we are kind of teasing these out as examples of what various businesses are able to do during these challenging times. All right, I'm not going to cover all 12 of those, industry groups or organizational groups, but what I want to do is kind of highlight a few, and the few that I'm highlighting in particular are those that are probably hardest hit or certainly have been facing the greatest challenge in terms of how to pivot. Up above, you have what we've heard in terms of observations and from the interviewees and some of the things we've pulled out from third-party research in terms of what's happening in this case for health and personal care. You can see robust sanitizing practices and remote class instruction, a lot of things that you're already familiar with. Underneath, and we have these for all of the organizational groups, promising practices. And we call them promising practices because, as opposed to best practices, because we, quite honestly, we wouldn't know what a best practice is without having everything in front of us and really coming together with a consensus on what is absolutely the best. So we call these promising because they are interesting, and what we've at least observed and or heard is they're working for the given businesses that are employing them. I've highlighted under promising practices at least one where I think it's of particular interest, and this one for health and personal care, establishing temporary mobile businesses, making house calls. There's actually a business in New York State that pre-COVID had already created a business model that has certainly served this particular entrepreneur well. And that is bringing the gym or the fitness center to the neighborhood. So this particular fitness center's model was, had kind of a trailer, the kind of trailer you would see landscapers use to pull out the, the drive mower and all their tools and equipment. Well, instead of that, this particular business has all of their fitness center equipment in there, and it's effectively a mobile gym. And what this gentleman does is he drives to various communities that he's marketed to and lets them know what day he's going to be there. And he basically sets up a mobile gym in a parking lot or on the side of a dead end street, and people come out in the open and do their exercise routine that he leads them through. And of course, he is well positioned, or has been well positioned in this current period of time. But this is something that we're hearing that other fitness centers who've been closed or people are afraid to go to are pivoting to. So this is just a very promising practice. Education and childcare, obviously significantly impacted by what's happening right now. You've got a variety, or kind of on the spectrum of what's happening here, from in-class instruction to online instruction to the hybrid model of some people are, doing a little bit of both, doing online and going in. Camps were obviously disrupted. So in terms of promising practices, these are pretty innovative, offering day camp kits, craft supplies, activities, instructions. Of course, that necessitates having an adult or someone who has the supervisory skills to make that happen. Hiring certified teachers to assist with online learning. Again, that's not available to everyone, but certainly there are groups of parents who've created what's referred to as pods, who've gotten together to do exactly that. And then I've highlighted here converting other venues into remote learning classrooms. And here is an example of where there's an opportunity to do crossing over with industries. So for example, we've heard of hotels or even dark retail stores making their space available for remote classroom learning. All right, their space is not being utilized for its intended purpose, and they've gotten together in this case with educational groups, whether it be public or private, and made their space available for online learning. In many cases, they may have the technology in place. So it's a very innovative practice that some might want to take advantage of. Hospitality and tourism, wow, I mean, there probably is no harder hit industry than this particular industry: bars, restaurants, cafes. I think we can all say, at least those of us who've either gone out to a restaurant over these past months, whether it's takeout or outside dining, we can see what's happening. Taking over what were formerly parking spaces on the side, right to the side of a sidewalk, in addition to having sidewalk seating. Nonetheless, this has been challenging, and as the weather becomes cooler, these businesses will have to pivot yet again and be creative, whether that's putting outside warming instruments, kerosene heaters, or whatever's allowed to be socially distanced in an outside environment. They're going to need to pivot to that. One of the promising practices that I felt noteworthy is the single booking model for restaurants. And this is really predicated on restaurants, marketing themselves aggressively to groups, to families, to coworkers, to say, rent the restaurant for the night. I mean, it's kind of the, rent the runway rule, rent the restaurant. You'll know who you're dining with that evening. Clearly, they will still have to recognize, capacity requirements, whether it's 25% or 50%. But it is one way to allow folks to feel a little bit more confident about who they're going out with, who's going to be in the space. And so this is but one example that we've highlighted here. Another one that I thought was interesting that I didn't highlight is the partnerships that are happening right now between hotels and universities, where students are, being housed. And in some cases, hotels are also pivoting to, housing for supportive purposes, or, temporary housing, or even affordable housing. I would expect that when all said and done over the next few years, that there will probably be fewer hotels that will able to be market viable, and some of these will have to be converted into some form of housing. Arts, entertainment, and sports and recreation. This is kind of a mixed bag in terms of how they've been impacted, for the simple reason that some of these activities that happen within this particular, kind of umbrella industry, if you will, already do a lot of what they do outside, particularly on the sports and recreation front. Nonetheless, because these industries also rely on large gatherings, they've been significantly impacted on their operations. The promising practice highlighted here, converting open air stadiums into drive-ins, movies, and concerts. I will tell you that since the pandemic has asserted itself back in the spring, when the warmer months came upon us, there has been a rise in demand for drive-in movies. As you all know, Regal Cinemas has basically mothballed all of its movie theaters around the country. United Artists is likely to do the same very shortly. Sony Theaters, the same. But what has come back into favor, for those of you old enough to remember going to a drive-in movie theater back in the day, are outside movies, which are now more technologically advanced than they were back in the day. They're digital, so you can listen to the audio on your cell phone or on your car stereo. And so, to the extent where there's opportunity to create an open air, in this case, drive-in theater or pop-up space for concerts and large mall parking lots, let's say, that's something that local zoning should facilitate to at least allow people to take advantage of outdoor entertainment. General retail, again, this is also a mixed bag to the extent that some retailers, particularly those who have an online presence, have done quite well. The Amazons, the Walmarts, the Targets of the world. Grocery stores have also continued to do quite well. I mean, obviously, food is essential, and notwithstanding the fact that there's been a run on certain items at grocery stores, toilet paper and paper towels and other essentials. Those types of retailers have done quite well. The retailers that haven't done so well have been apparel retailers. Unfortunately, these are the types of stores that really populate a lot of our shopping centers and malls, which is another reason why malls are struggling and shopping centers generally are struggling. A promising practice that is highlighted here, marketing through social media and newsletters. Really, a lot of things have been going online, and that's not going to change. Most of us have heard the expression, the pandemic has accelerated this particular trend. And I think this holds true for marketing through social media and newsletters. This was already happening. What the pandemic has done is just accelerated that particular effort more significantly. And what I would suggest here or recommend here is that local main streets, if you're not already doing this, is that you partner with your businesses on these marketing and social media campaigns. If you're going to help your business out, you want to give them the greatest boost possible. So you want to create a homepage, if you don't already have one, that is promoting your local businesses and whatever activities they have going on, sales or otherwise. As a lot of local residents are going to look to the municipal website for what's happening, and so this would be a great opportunity to support your local businesses. Social services, which really is a kind of a large catch-all group, and encompasses everything from food delivery organizations, places of worship, and traditional public service agencies. Their challenge is meeting the needs of those who have lost their jobs and or maybe shut in because of fear for going out, associated with the pandemic. Promising practice that we identified is, I should say, it's both promising and can also be a challenge. So I should really preface it that way, is internet access. While internet access, I think, has in general been a good thing during this period of time, and has certainly allowed a lot of folks to access educational services, access information for public service, as well as to purchase items online. The challenge is that not all residents have equal access to the internet, and thus, one of the things that the public sector needs to do, particularly at the local level, but certainly at the county level, is to understand, where those gaps exist and to identify how, that gap can be bridged, whether it's directing people to local libraries, or, as I mentioned earlier, in certain cases, you have these dark stores or stores that, where the business has gone out, setting up a bank of computers that are connected to the internet to allow folks to come in, again, socially distanced, and take care of whatever business needs or service needs they need to take care of. But again, this is it's both a promising as well as a challenging issue as far as internet access is concerned. And finally, agriculture. With agriculture, of course, social distancing is pretty, in general, and I'll say, across the board, can generally be accomplished, not always. So in that way, they haven't, the ag industry hasn't been impacted, at least in the county, as much as, ag industries, let's say elsewhere, where people are closer together, they're out in the fields picking produce or what have you. But they have been impacted in terms of, rising costs and also disruption to their distribution systems. Promising practice that we identified here is, and for those restaurants that are still making a go of it, is to partner with local restaurants, have local farms to, have their, showcase their produce and, form a partnership that way. Again, some of this was already happening, and this is an opportunity to increase that particular activity so that both the local restaurant as well as the local farm benefit. And it's another example of cross-industry collaboration or cooperation. And finally, I mentioned the survey that is most recently closed to respondents. And right now we are in process of basically compiling and cross-tabulating the results, and should have that ready in about a week's time. We had over 500 responses, which we think was pretty good. And as you can see at the top, a large percentage of these respondents were year-round operations, and 2/3 or nearly 2/3 of those respondents are local businesses. So you're kind of your small businesses that are run by people that probably live somewhere in Chester County. So these are people who are probably particularly vulnerable, did not have the same kind of cash cushion as a regional or national business, but are nonetheless extremely critical to the economy in Chester County. So we want to make sure that when we ultimately come out with recommendations, that those businesses in particular are supported. The takeaway that I have here, and we heard this through at least one, if not a couple of our interviews, is really the long-term success of businesses, and particularly those businesses that are small and depend on people coming to them as opposed to purchasing online, is there's got to be consumer confidence that it's safe to go out and be out, whether that's a restaurant, whether that's a boutique retailer or the salon, right? And this is not to suggest that any locality or the county or even the state for that matter controls that, but that they do play a part in terms of making sure that health requirements, health standards are taken seriously, adhered to, and also to promote the fact that, to the extent that people are adhering to those recommendations, it is safe to go out and patronize your business. And that should be part of the campaign, is to promote people to get out there and patronize businesses in a socially responsible manner. So with that, Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Todd. And thank you to all our speakers. We really appreciate you joining us and presenting again today. With that, we're going to open our question and answer period. And again, you may do that in two ways. You can write questions into the chat and identify who you wish to address your question to, and I will read that question and have the appropriate person respond, and/or you can raise your hand there as an option, I believe, at the bottom of your screen, and we will identify you and let you turn your audio and visual on and let you ask your question. So we will try our best to moderate this as best we can. First, we have a question. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading this. Again, feel free to do either or in terms of raising your hand and typing into the chat. So this is, I'll give this kind of as an open-ended question. Someone typed in a question about quality of life, and with COVID-19 as a new backdrop, when a new vaccine becomes available, what would be some recommendations that we could give the audience? And I guess that would be in terms of notification to the public and potentially about distribution. And I welcome anybody to answer that question. I wouldn't say that I am completely an expert in giving a specific answer to that question, but if anybody wants to help address that, that would be great. And I assume the county health department obviously would have a big part to play in that, and they obviously would be one of the primary agencies, particularly from a county standpoint, that would assist with that in both putting the word out and as well helping to administer those, I would guess. And again, I don't work for the health department, so I can't give a specific answer.
Yeah, I don't think we have an answer now, Kevin, but this is Brian, but we can certainly get back to the person
Cool.
with an answer.
Right. I'll kick it off with a couple of questions I was thinking of. My first question would just be for Lorenzo. I know we have a couple municipalities here on this forum, and you mentioned you work in mostly Delaware and in southeastern Pennsylvania. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on your service radius, just in case some of our municipalities or other organizations would be interested in contacting you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So yes, it's the entire state of Delaware, and then southeastern Pennsylvania would cover Chester County, Delaware County, and then up to Philadelphia, Bucks, and Montgomery.
Oh, great. Okay, so you mean when you mean okay, so you didn't mean I could have misspoke there by saying southeastern Chester County. You meant southeastern Pennsylvania. I apologize.
Pennsylvania, correct.
Great, fantastic. All right. This looks like a question again to Lorenzo. If someone would be interested in connecting with, I apologize, the pronunciation of your acronym there, SCCON, how would they do that? Would they contact you, email you directly, etc.?
SCCON, I think that was for Luke.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was Luke. I apologize.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you. Email is lzubrod, LZUBROD, @ksqroots.com.
Okay, hopefully.
I'll put that in the chat message as well.
Great, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. All right. Question is, can any of the slides be made available? Again, I'll note that this forum is being recorded and it will be available on our website in the near future. That would be on chescoplanning.org under Muni Corner under Urban Center. Sorry, a little bit of a trail there, but chescoplanning.org, which is Chester County Planning Commission's website, under Muni Corner, under the Urban Centers page, there's a Urban Centers Forum tab. And there's information on our past urban centers, and as well, the videos will be there. And I'm sure they're also, Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm sure we will put a banner on our website as well, just to kind of announce that. And as well, I'm sure we'd be glad to send out an email to everybody who attended Urban Centers Forum as a notification to the video being up on our website when that is available.
Yeah, we'll definitely do follow-up information, and we will post, presentations, get permission from folks. And that'll happen over the next couple weeks or so.
Right. We have a chat there that I believe from Mr. Ketchum. I think it looks like it was to everyone, and it's a question about masks. And does anybody have ideas about keeping up our safe practices as we encourage more people to come out and visit retail shops?
I'll begin with that one. The county is doing a campaign on wearing masks, understanding that people are getting tired of it, but we are in the midst of that campaign to really encourage people to continue wearing masks right now.
Great.
Yeah, I would chime in by saying, this is a way that business and retail in particular can get creative by rewarding people to wear a mask. In other words, they could have a contest. If you're kind of walking around wearing a mask and they're picking out maybe the best looking mask, or, almost like a bingo type system, in that you get, a free coupon the next time you come into the store and you were wearing your mask and you were the one selected. I mean, this is I think this is a way to get creative and, make it fun. I mean, I think that's part of the problem, is wearing a mask and doing all the other, required health practices sometimes becomes drudgery. And I think one way to get people to be more compliant is to make it, as fun as possible, and, get them to play along.
Great, Todd. That's an excellent suggestion. I like that. Try to make wearing a mask isn't fun, so try to make it fun is in some way, shape, or form is a great recommendation. Any other questions or raised hands? Okay. All right, this is a question about businesses that do not have enough cash on hand to last through many months through the pandemic. Do recent immigrant-run businesses have less cash on hand, and is there no difference? I'm not sure if anybody has any data to suggest that. Maybe the Kennett Square folks might have some input on that.
I'd love to hear from Lorenzo on that. I can touch base from my perspective and what we saw. My limited perspective is actually that some of the Latinx businesses maybe have more cash on hand and certainly are more kind of community oriented. They share resources within the community more readily. That's something we heard regularly. It's worth pointing out that from what we saw, very few of the Latinx businesses received or applied for PPP funds or some of the other federal or local grant programs. So that was certainly something we saw. Lorenzo deals more with those businesses, so may have a totally different answer and certainly a better idea of kind of the cash flow or cash savings of some of those businesses.
So yeah, to Bo's point, yeah, especially in the Hispanic business owner community, a lot of them, it is a kind of a network. They do support each other. They know each other. I know here in the Kennett Square community, a lot of the business owners that I know, they're all interconnected. They all know each other. They support each other, and that's true in a lot of communities. Now, at the same time, with that community, it is a trust building issue or trust building exercise as well to reach that community. And that, a lot of times, the translation of material, of resources may not always be there. And again, going back to that trust, that is a challenge in a lot of communities as well, in that some of these individuals may not know about these programs, or if they know about the programs, how to access those programs, or who to contact, or simply even something as simple as just applying, having that assistance to apply, and I can say that with the SBRF, something that I actually did quite a bit of is, I would meet in person with these individuals and go through the application with them in person, and helping them fill it out and answering their questions. And I strongly feel like without that additional, effort or step, some of these businesses, the businesses that did apply may not have applied at all. And, I think that's very important. I think for maybe every community just to keep in mind is, there's always work we can do, ways we can improve to make sure we're reaching out to everyone in need.
I wanted to tag in on that, and that's this, and this is from not only the work that we're doing here, but I've done an earlier presentation on what to expect post-COVID, and across different land use types, housing, retail, commercial office, light industrial. And the research that we've done suggests, obviously there's going to be a lot of vacant storefronts, particularly along Main Street, combination of retail, restaurants, and the like. And really, this is, I like to use the Wayne Gretzky quote of, when he was asked, how have you been so successful in your career? And he says, because I skate to where the puck's gonna be, right? This is the time to skate to where the puck's gonna be. Know for a fact that you're going to have a number of vacancies, a number of store closures, business closures. The question is, who goes in next? What is next, right? And the what is next depends on how well capitalized your entrepreneurs that are standing in the wings are. Do they have the technical expertise to go in and take over business rapidly? Do they have, the working capital to go in and set up shop? This, I think, is the opportunity to be thinking about what happens 6 months from now, a year from now, because the last thing you want to do as the public sector in your community is look at a bunch of, boarded up storefronts or vacant buildings. Number one, it sends a signal that things are on a decline economically, but more importantly, it's going to eventually impact the value of real estate that's nearby, which in turn lowers your rateable base, which obviously is a vicious cycle. So, I would say, and kind of, germane to what we just talked about with immigrants and having access to capital, that's fine, and they're going to need more of it. But I think now is also an opportunity to think, okay, knowing we're going to have a variety of vacant businesses, how do we match various entrepreneurs up with those opportunities, right? They're going to be places, restaurants that become what's referred to as ghost kitchens. Ghost kitchens are basically, restaurants that don't allow people to come in, but would-be restaurateurs or food businesses can come in, use the kitchen, and sell or distribute out of there. All right, there's an opportunity. There's opportunities to repurpose retail stores for some other use. And so this is the time to be very creative about how we utilize, these, basically the built environment.
Great, thank you. That's a good discussion. Appreciate that. Other questions, comments? Speakers are allowed to provide additional thoughts too, if you would like. We have a couple minutes. All right. All right, I'll give everybody a last chance here for additional comments. All right. Well, with that, let me wrap us up here with just a few comments. Someone just indicated regarding this is that this is actually the first of 2 sessions for the Urban Centers Forum. The next one will be on Thursday at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., just like this one was. And a couple good segues there actually from those last couple of comments is the next session will be on design and talking about how Main Street design can help enhance economic vitality and some of those adjustments that were talked about in terms of using parking spaces for restaurants and outdoor dining and things of that nature. And so I think that will be very useful. We invite you to attend that. You can register by finding, if you haven't already, there's a banner on our website, and hopefully most of the people on this forum probably already received that email, and hopefully you will join us for that as well. As well, I'd like to note for our Urban Centers representatives that are with us today, we will be opening the Urban Centers Improvement Inventory update, which happens on an annual basis fairly soon. Look for an email from me. Again, that is a precursor to the Department of Community Development's Community Revitalization Program that Pat talked about earlier. And you should already be aware of that, but look for that coming up. So it's an important part of that process. I think that is the bulk of what I need to say. Again, thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you found this beneficial, and we look forward to seeing you at the next forum as well next year at the forum. This is my information. You're welcome to email me for comments or feedback regarding this forum and potential future forums. And again, we'd like to thank all our speakers today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin and speakers. So that was great. We'll see ya. Bye-bye, folks.
All right, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you very much.